Minecraft experiments have been done primarily to create an environment that produces interesting narratives, or have been done to act as a background environment for predetermined narratives to play out in. I want to make this clear, I don't think this is bad. The focus on telling interesting stories gave us some incredible videos that I still find myself rewatching today. Despite this, I'm often left unsatisfied with the guided nature of these experiments. When something happens that makes me go, now that's interesting, and then it turns out it was scripted by the event planners, the experiment kind of loses its magic. I lose confidence that any interesting event could go any deeper than the staff told us to do it. With how well you guys responded to my last video, clearly you feel the same way. My plan is to do a civilization experiment that is a proper experiment. I'm interested in making something that can be analyzed and studied, with much deeper reasons for events than we were told to. I want an experiment you could write a paper on. In fact, I had a couple students reach out wanting to write papers for their university's sociology departments. If we change Minecraft's individualist production loop to a social production loop where cooperation in production is required to survive, what ways will players organize themselves to survive against not only the environment, but other groups of players as well? That's the question I want to answer. I'd like to briefly give my thoughts on your guys' recommendations while walking you through my investigation into the best way to simulate this type of experiment. The most frequent comment I saw was to use Vintage Story. There are lots of advantages to Vintage Story. It already has most of the mechanics that I would want to add to Minecraft. It's a very difficult game that has a lot of time costs, which makes surviving by yourself a real challenge. This is in comparison to Minecraft's sandbox nature, where survival hurdles are small and the bigger goal is to give the player the freedom to do what they want. In Vintage Story, just surviving is a constant daily struggle with your food rotting quickly and wildlife always ready to send you back to the world spawn with your hunger halved. On a personal note, I didn't know Vintage Story was a thing before I made my last video, and it's literally everything I wanted from Minecraft and more. I will be pouring some serious hours into this game. However, even though it has 90% of the mechanics we want,
Just basically like if you're in a room with let's just say 20 people, say I was running in that room 10 to 15 frames.
okay, it isn't ready to handle hundreds of players on the same server. Now I say it isn't ready because the game is steadily being worked on by a small dev team who are doing an amazing job. I did hear somewhere that they have a goal of having servers run smoothly with more players as the player base increases, but all I know for now is that it's not possible to run an experiment on the scale we want in the game's current state. And that guy was Akari, one of the admins over at Chronicles of Time, one of Vintage Story's largest roleplay servers and multiplayer. He was very nice to show me around Vintage Stories, show me around their back end, what hosting servers looks like. Super cool dude all around. I highly recommend checking out Chronicles of Time if you do have Vintage Story and you do like roleplay. The next recommendation I got was to use Minecraft but with Terra Firmacraft. Once again, Terra Firmacraft has some incredible mechanics that are definitely a step in the right direction, but the problem comes when we try to throw hundreds of players into the same server with this mod pack. Terra Firmacraft has a tendency to crash even in single player. Now imagine 300 players constantly relogging and a server resetting every 30 minutes due to game-breaking bugs. In large mod packs like Terra Firmacraft, there are simply too many things that could go wrong. Not to mention getting 300 people to correctly install it would be a headache. While it's pretty easy to install by yourself, even a 30-second quick fix turns into a 30-minute debug session when you're coordinating 300 people. A much better system will be to rely on plugins so players don't have to mess with the technical side, with the only mod players having to install being simple voice chat. A lot of commenters also suggested adding roles and class systems, where players are assigned roles and are unable to perform tasks outside of those roles, which forces them to cooperate to meet all of their needs. This just doesn't sit well with me. A huge part of what makes human labor so powerful is its incredible flexibility in what tasks it can perform. This superpower lets human communities adapt quickly and is something that's already present in Minecraft. To me, it feels like a false step forward, where we move closer to our goal of incentivizing specialization, but we take a step away from our goal of dynamic social development. When we assign people roles, we kind of just make their society for them and don't give them an opportunity to come up with their own unique organizations. I do have an idea that is slightly adjacent to class systems. I think it would be a good way to move towards both dynamic development and incentivizing specialization, and is actually inspired by how the Spiffing Brit and his team are tackling this problem in their own event, which is happening later this month. Quick side note, I was lucky enough to have a chat with Spiff and his community manager Connor about their event, and while his event is a bit heavier on the narrative side compared to what I'm proposing, it's shaping up to be much more dynamic and emergent than almost any other civilization experiment. He and his team are really serious about keeping the event unscripted unscripted and letting the players tell their own stories. They also approach the problem of how to increase material requirements in an interesting way beautifully, and I will definitely be using it in my own experiment, but I don't want to give too much of their event away, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Just keep an eye out for it. A system which could provide the same advantages and specialization as a class system while keeping the flexibility that Minecraft provides is to implement a skill leveling system with different categories. As players perform specific tasks, they can level up those categories, which improves their efficiency at those tasks. I know this is nothing new, but you haven't heard my twist yet. The sum of all the skills levels stays the same. An increase in the level of one category will lead to a decrease in the rest. This allows players to balance their skills to stay useful in certain categories, but above average in one if they'd like, or if they have a solid community behind them, they can max out one skill and be absolutely useless at doing anything else. This system gives advantages to cooperation that go beyond surviving against the environment. It also allows players to switch their skills around, since if they start performing a different set of tasks, they will slowly lose their old proficient skill and level up the new one. This should incentivize specialization without artificially holding players back from addressing the needs of their communities.
I also forgot to mention that the way that these skills impact player efficiency in production is it's very, very closely related to how the Spiffing Brit has addressed this problem in his event, and so I don't want to get too into the weeds about it because I don't want to spoil anything from his event. So I'll talk about it like later, next month or something like that.
I'm currently dabbling in lots of other changes that need to be made in order to make this project a reality, but all of this is just words on a Google Doc if we don't have developers to implement them into the game. I'm currently working with the owners of Rue Events, who have been gracious enough to give me access to their servers and devs, but we're always looking for more people, especially those who have experience with Minecraft plugins, to help us make this thing happen. If you'd be interested in helping out, head down to the description and join the Discord. Even if you're not a dev, please post any thoughts or ideas you have in the comments and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any updates or future videos about this project. It's at this point that I'd like to do a little expectation management. I know we're all very excited, none more than myself, but we're gonna need a little bit of time to get everything set up. I wouldn't expect us to start hosting for at least a couple months. Our current plan is to run 6 sessions once a week and then decide if we want to go longer. I'm not planning on making an ish level video on these sessions either. If I do make my own video, it will most likely be a broad analysis of how the society's developed and any interesting things that happened. Don't expect an engaging and satisfying story. I'm going to recommend to every player who participates to record their own perspectives and make their own videos about their story. I feel it's important to leave the real storytelling to the participants themselves, instead of having it forced on them from above. Also, at this point, I can't even guarantee if societies will form even with the conditions I posited in the last video. I want you guys to look at this like a science experiment instead of an event. We're not trying to reach a predetermined goal, rather we're trying to see what happens and why. Even if no society forms and it turns out I was completely wrong, I'm still going to make an analysis video of what exactly went wrong and hopefully try it again at a later date with a few more changes. As for future videos on my channel, I will be posting more responses to your guys' suggestions, and I'll be making videos on the mechanics we want to implement as we decide on them. I'll see you in the next video.